Guys, so I wanted to start our Let's Talk series. The first topic we're going to do is domestic violence, simply because I've been wanting to talk about it for a long time, and it's something that I've had to deal with for years, and I'm still dealing with it even though I have removed myself from the situation. So I want to talk to you about things that have happened to me and how to get out and what signs and symptoms are. So we're gonna go back to 2007 or no 2006. November 2006, I started dating my ex-husband, and things were good. I didn't know at the time that he was a drug addict, alcoholic. We did party together a little bit, but I wasn't with him 24/7. So there was a lot of things that were hidden from me up until like within the next year. Um, he wasn't controlling at first. Like it started like more towards like the 9 month year mark, 9 months to a year, 9 to 12 months. And there would be things like he would hit me on my ass so hard that I would like be bruised or something, and he would just like to smack me and play around and stuff, and that should have been a symptom, like a sign that things were gonna go bad. Like he got a thrill out of seeing how hard he could smack me and the marks that were left. The first time he actually like hit me, we were in a park and we were in an argument, and he smacked me across the face so hard that it dislocated my jaw. And he had started being controlling at that point, pretty controlling. I wasn't allowed to have friends, and we weren't like living together or anything. So it had to have been like around a year that we had been together. So I was already graduated, and that night I went to my friend's house, and she took me to the hospital because my jaw was literally like hanging from the side. I have TMJ, so it like really messed my jaw up, and I couldn't speak very well. Well, I could a little bit, but not very well, and it was so bad. It hurt so bad. So she took me to the hospital, and my mom met us up there, and then there was nothing they could do. Like my jaw kind of just had to pop back in place on its own after the swelling went down, which is what I had to kind of just pop back in after, because everything was just so swollen. But there is like medical records on that, and my girlfriend said, "This is it. Like you have to choose me or him. I can't be friends with you and watch you get smacked around. He's already throwing a fit when you come to visit me. He won't let you hang out with me, and we can't be friends anymore, on a regular basis. You can't ever call me and talk to me. And then now this." She's like, "I can't sit here and watch this. So you need to pick. Do you want to be friends with me or do you want to stay with him?" And I chose to stay with him, and I haven't talked to her since. So that was one relationship that I lost right there. And after a while, I wasn't allowed to talk to my friends at all. Like, I have friends from like first grade that I've known that were my best friends forever. I still don't have a good relationship with them now at this point. And I left my ex-husband 4 years ago. In 2 months, it'll be 4 years. I left, and we still don't have a great relationship because we lost 6 years of contact. Like, we'll talk now and then. And when my grandma passed away, one of my good friends, she was there for me. But we still are pretty distant, which sucks. But it went this way. If he liked one of my girlfriends, he'd sleep with them. And then I would want nothing to do with her because she slept with my boyfriend slash husband, depending on what timeline we were in. And if he didn't like them and didn't want to sleep with them, I wasn't allowed to talk to them. We got married in 2009, March of 2009. And I had my son in May of 2011. I had 3 miscarriages before I had my son. The first 2 were like I wasn't very far along, like within the first month, 6 to 8 weeks-ish. Like I literally found out I was pregnant, and then within a couple weeks after that, I was miscarrying. And then the next one, my third pregnancy, I got to like 4.5 months of being pregnant, and he had beaten me so bad one night while I was pregnant in front of one of his friends. And at this point, we were homeless. Um, because my family, we weren't married yet, but my family didn't want me to be with him, and I was just so stuck to him that I lived in my car while I was pregnant. My grandma didn't really want me here while I was pregnant. She didn't want me to live with her while I was pregnant, and um, I chose to live in my car. And we were getting help from like trustees and whatnot, and um, we had a hotel room that they had paid for because we would bounce from like hotel to hotel, but they would pay for it, like the Salvation Army and the city trustees. And he had one of his friends over, and he beat the shit out of me. And the next morning, I started bleeding vaginally pretty bad after we left the hotel. And I went to the hospital and they did an ultrasound, and they said that the baby had stopped developing, and then they sent me home. And at the hospital, my mom had asked him if he had beat me so bad that I miscarried, and he lied to my mom and said no, and I didn't pipe in and say anything because I was so upset I just lost my baby. And then the problem with that is the hospital sent me home, but they didn't do a D&C, they didn't do anything to me, so I got really sick. And 2 days later, I had to go back to the hospital, and he dropped me off at the hospital while I was having D&C and put on morphine, and I had 3 nurses holding my hand while the doctors working on me. And he was off with another girl getting drunk and sleeping with her, and he wouldn't answer his phone, so I was stuck at the hospital because they wouldn't let me leave that night without someone to drive me because I had been on such heavy drugs. Like morphine. You can't drive on morphine. So I had to wait for him to come up there, and he was completely wasted. And I found out later that he slept with a girl that he had been hanging out with that day, who I had become friends with. So that's a big slap in the face. Another thing was, like, I didn't really have a whole lot of contact with my mom, my grandma. And when we were living in the car, I didn't have a job. I didn't have money. So if he wanted his cigarettes or his alcohol or anything like that, he would start beating me and pressuring me to call one of my family members and ask them for money. And he would do this thing where he would say, get it for me, I need it, I need it, I need it, get it for me, I need it, I need it, over and over again until I just couldn't take it anymore. Then I gave in and I called somebody. And that's not fair to my family. That's not fair that I did that to them because that's not their problem. It's not their cigarette habit or their alcohol habit or their marijuana habit. It was his. And so I got beat a lot during that pregnancy. And then finally I moved back in with my grandma. I still stayed with him. I stayed with him for almost 6 years. And we got married. I finally moved out of my grandma's house. I saved up enough money and found a condo not too far away. And we rented a room and a bathroom from this guy who owned a condo. We got married then too, and because of the fighting so much, we got kicked out because there was a homeowners association with that condo area with a little tiny like cul-de-sac full of condos, but they have a homeowners association in that condo place, and we weren't approved to be renting from one of the guys, that owned the condo, and so we got kicked out. But the guy gave us all of our money back because he didn't have permission to rent out the condo in the first place. So, but because of the fighting and the screaming and the yelling, and him beating me so much, and the condos being attached to each other, that was why we got kicked out of there. So then we found an apartment and we moved straight into another apartment. And while we were there, now he's in and out of jail all the time for drug charges, for I think DUIs, public intoxication, vandalism, anything. So he's in and out of jail constantly. So he went to jail for something. He had a warrant out for his arrest. I don't even know. Oh, I think he violated probation because he would do really well on probation for a little while, and then he would get high. And then he would fail a piss test at probation once a month, and then would just stop showing up for probation. So they put a warrant out for your arrest. Um, so he actually took my car one night, him and his friend. Well, actually, his friend came over and had brought a joint, and they were rolling up a joint in the parking lot of my apartment complex. I had just gotten off of work, so I was in the house eating, and I didn't know what was going on outside. And apparently, they were rolling up a joint right in front of an undercover cop. So then I've got police swarming the apartment all of a sudden, and he has a warrant out for his arrest. So he gave his brother's information. I didn't know his brother's information, like birth date and shit. So the cops are coming knocking on my sliding glass door asking me questions, and I'm like, that's between you guys. I don't know what's going on out here. And he's asking me, is his name his brother's name, and what's his birth date, and all this stuff. And I wouldn't give them information, and they really wanted this drug conviction. So I got a charge for false informing because I wouldn't give up information. But they left, and the drug officer had said to him, "You give me your drug dealer by tomorrow, and I won't press charges on you." Well, that night, um, his friend came back over and stayed the night, and they were drinking, and I was asleep, and I was off for the next 2 days. And they decided to take my car, and my ex-husband didn't have a license, and Kurt did have a license, but they drove drunk. He let his friend drive drunk, and they got pulled over, and my car got impounded, and they both went to jail. And then obviously they went to jail because my ex-husband had a warrant out for his arrest. So I woke up in the middle of the night with all the lights on in the living room, and nobody was there, and I can't get a hold of anybody. And finally, he calls me, and he's calling me from the back of a squad car from his cell phone, saying that he is drunk and he got arrested. And the police department, it was the next city over, but I wasn't like too far from the city line, so I walked in the middle of the night to a high crime area because I had to go get a release for my car before I could pick it up from the tow company, and they wanted to release his property to me. So I go and walk, and I pick up the paperwork I need, and they release his property to me, and they release me a handful of condoms along with his wallet and whatnot. So I'm pretty pissed. I also called the friend's mom. They wanted me to call her and let her know that he had been arrested, and I asked her, hey, look, I need to get my car to impound. I've already got all these fees sitting on it, even though it's only been, it's going to be one day tomorrow. I'm not asking for money. I have the money in the bank. Can you just give me a ride to the bank and a ride to pick up the car, since your son got my car impounded by driving drunk? She told me no, that now both of her sons are in jail, and she's a mess, and blah, 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 she can't help me. So my grandmother had to take a vacation day and take me to the bank, and then take me to get my car to impound. And it was a freaking mess. And then there was the whole situation of the condoms. He tried to tell me those were his friend's condoms. They pulled them out of his friend's pocket, yet they were like government issued condoms from the clinic I had been going to, and they're a specific brand that you only get from like government clinics and facilities. And they were ours. And he said, well, I took them for my friend, and he was going to use them, and we were going to go meet up with one of his friends, and so that, he could meet up with her. I had nothing to do with it, which was a bunch of shit. I'm like, they're not going to put his property with your property. So there was that. And at the time, I was pregnant, and I didn't know it. I had already been 2 months pregnant with my son. So then he stayed in jail for, I don't know, probably, he got out before my son was born, so it wasn't even 7 months. It was probably like 5 or 6 months. Got out, didn't complete probation, was beating me constantly. When his Social Security check would hit, like the deal was his Social Security check paid for the rent, and then whatever was left up out of that, which would be like $250 a month, he could have that, and I would pay all of the other bills, because his check hit around the first of the month, which is when rent is due. And then we have all the rent money just paid off, and that's right. First of the month comes around, almost every month, like clockwork. He wants his money. F you, bitch, it's my money, blah, blah, blah. I would have to hide it. If I couldn't get to the money order right away, or get the money order, the place we were living, you had to drive like 2 cities away to go take the money order into a real estate office for the landowner, or the landlord. And then if I couldn't get it right away, then the money would be sitting in the house and I'd have to hide it. And he tore up the apartment several times, breaking glass, ripping the mattress apart, looking for the money. And then he would take it and then he would go blow all of it, all over $500 of it in one night with his friends, get wasted. Half the time he came back, oh, it was stolen. Oh, when I was passed out and somebody stole it out of my pocket. And this happened a million times. So then I'd be stuck with the rent. He wouldn't care. Screw you. I don't care. I don't care if I get evicted. Blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm pregnant, and I do care if I get evicted. I'm working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, pregnant. Like, this is bullshit. And there was one night he beat me so bad that I started bleeding vaginally. And he was supposed to go to court the next morning. And I went to the hospital, and I had a busted lip, a busted eye. I was bleeding vaginally. They kept me overnight to monitor me. Child services came in and told me that if I stayed with him and this baby was born and I was still with him, and it's on record, they would take my baby from the hospital when I gave birth. There would be no opportunity for me to get my child back because I put my child in danger by staying with him, which I stayed with him, but they didn't take the baby away from me. But as I'm in the hospital, I'm getting a phone call. Now his phone is off all night long, and I'm getting a phone call while he's trying to walk to court that I'm an effing bitch, and I'm screwing him over because he was supposed to go to court this morning, and now I have the car, and I'm in the hospital, and this is my fault that he's going to go back to jail because he's going to miss his court date. And he actually ended up getting a ride from one of the girls I work with. He was over by where she lived, and she gave him a ride to court. And then she came up to the hospital to see me, and she's like, I didn't know what had happened. And I didn't know. I thought I was doing you a favor by giving her a ride to court. She's like, he reeked of alcohol. So that's how that went. And I mean, like, I almost lost my son a couple times because of him beating me. And it got to the point where I couldn't talk to my mom or my grandma or anybody. He was hitting on my sister constantly. And, like, I would try to call my mom, and he would stand there screaming in my ear so that my mom's like, I can't hear anything you're saying, and I'm not dealing with him. He would just talk so loud and just start screaming in my ear so that I couldn't have a conversation, and we'd have to hang up. There was just no way to have that conversation. So, but we were over to see his family all the time, and I had no choice, and I had to go because I had to be babysat all the time. I wasn't allowed to be alone by myself unless he was out cheating on me or in jail. So, get comfortable. So, he also had made it so that I wasn't allowed to straighten my hair. I have really, really curly hair. I wasn't allowed to cut it, and I wasn't allowed to straighten it. And it started to be where if I wore makeup, I would be beaten because I was cheating on him by wearing makeup. Who do I need to wear makeup for? If I started painting my nails, I was quote-unquote cheating, and I didn't need to be doing that. He would take scissors and shred my clothes up. Like, my mom would give me clothes that were, like, nice from, like, Lane Bryant, and they were expensive, and they were nice, and she was losing weight, and they weren't fitting her anymore, and they were really pretty, and he didn't like them, so he would shred them up. Like, take a pair of scissors and just start shredding them or ripping them. During fights, he would rip clothes. I can't even tell you how many times I had a brand new shirt on and it got literally ripped off of my body. It was just, it was just extreme. And then, like, at first, like, the beatings would only be, like, once every couple months. And then it would be, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. And he'd be really, really nice to me and buy me things. And be, like, the model husband for, like, a couple weeks, and then we'd go back to fighting a lot. Like, he would pick stupid fights. There was one fight he picked about toilet paper just so he could leave, so he would cheat. I mean, it would just be stupid shit all the time. And at this point, my family didn't want much to do with me. I mean, I can't really blame them looking back. His family wants nothing to do with him to this day. And, you know, he hated my family. So he had actually, when I lived with my grandma, stolen from her. She had Christmas presents hidden under her bed, and while I was in the shower, he was over here where she wasn't supposed to be, and that was my fault. But he had stolen a bunch of stuff and loaded it into the trunk of my car. And then he drove me to work, and then he went off and pawned it, and I didn't know. Like, one was a drill, like an electric drill, And my grandma kept asking me, where is it? I know where I put it. Did you use it? And at the time, I didn't have a use for a drill. I didn't even know how to use it. And I'm like, Grandma, seriously, what am I going to do with a drill? She's like, yeah, you're right. And I stuck up for him. And then I found out, like, my grandma had called the police and made a police report, and I found out he really did take it. He really did sell it. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So my grandma placed a restraining order on him. And he broke the restraining order. So then he, I believe, got a warrant out for his arrest for that. So he had a vendetta against my grandma. She put him in prison. Now, everything that ever happened was always my fault or somebody else's fault. When he breaks the law and he goes to jail, it's your fault because you called the cops on him. He wouldn't go to jail if you didn't call the cops. So I was always getting blamed for things. My family were getting blamed for things, and it was a way to take his anger out. My mom also put a restraining order on him that he couldn't come near her house. He violated the restraining order. He did come to her house with me. She had asked me to let the dog out while she was away. So I was going and letting the dog out, and he stole a crap ton of shit from her. He did beat me to the point where he wanted me to go in and pawn a couple things because he didn't want it in his name. And I told him no, I wasn't doing it. And he had hit me and hurt me, and he wanted cigarettes and whatnot. And I think this was when we were living in the car. And so I pawned it, and he kept saying, like, he would use this against me. I'm telling your mom that you stole from her and you pawned the stuff. And I'm like, you stole from her, not me. And he's like, but it's in your name. Half of the stuff is in your name. Who is she going to believe? And every time he wanted me to do something and I didn't want to do it, that was being thrown in my face. And finally, I'm like, fuck it. I told my mom. And I'm like, look, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this being held against me. I'm tired of being held over my head. Look, he did this. He made me pawn part of it. So my mom made a police report. And at this point, he had already gone to jail for beating me several times. And we were getting evicted out of this apartment. This apartment we were at, too. This was the third apartment. The first apartment we were at after the condo, we stayed for a year, and then when our lease was up, it was just too expensive. But he was so violent that he had punched holes in the walls. Like, I'm talking, like, massive holes. And he took, one night he was drunk, he took a hammer to the countertop. And we're lucky we didn't get sued for that. And right before, it was like a month before I was supposed to have my son, I was put on bed rest for my job. And we moved into this next apartment that we're at. And we actually ended up only being there for 6 months. And he did the thing where he took the rent money, so then we were going to get evicted. We didn't actually get evicted because, like, it was a slumlord and they were running the place for, like, completely illegally. So they couldn't, like, take us to court for anything. But, with the thing with my mom, we were living at that apartment, and an officer called. He got arrested. He got a warrant out for his arrest, but the officer said, I need you to come in and make a video saying what happened, because he's giving us a different story and this and that. And I'm like, okay, I need you to do me a favor and look up his record. And he's like, I do, I have it in front of me. And I'm like, you see how many battery charges are on there? And he goes, yeah. And I said, now, is this video going to be played in court for him to see? And the officer's like, yeah. I'm like, I can't do that. I have a baby. I had had my son already at this point. It was in the end of November, and my son was born in May. And I said, I have a baby, and he will get out, and he will kill me. He won't just beat me, he will murder me, because it'll be my fault that my video got him convicted to prison time. And the officer wanted this conviction so bad that he didn't care. And they said, if you don't come in by Friday and make a video statement, I'm going to put a warrant out for your arrest for receiving stolen property. And I didn't think they'd actually do it. I didn't think that they would actually be that shitty to not care about my safety, and that they were just so dead set on their conviction. Like, he already violated the restraining order. So, I mean, they already had one conviction on him, but he wouldn't go to prison. He would stay in county jail for it. So I didn't go in, and I got a warrant out for my arrest. And I got arrested actually going up to one of his court dates. I didn't know there was a warrant. And I stayed in jail for 2 months. I lost my apartment. My mom and my grandma moved half of my stuff into a storage unit, and the rest of it they just kept. And then my mom kept my son. But they let me sit in jail for 2 months because they didn't want to pay the bond. And my mom was just so mad at that point. And I'm just like, I'd rather do 2 months in jail than him get out and murder me, because in his mind, it'd be my fault, even though he's the one who broke into my mom's house and he's the one that stole things. So I did jail time because I went and rat him out. So I've had 2 charges against me, one for false informing, which I turned myself in on that warrant and bailed myself out immediately. It was like $250 or $500, something like that. I think it was maybe $250 to a bondsman. And I was pregnant, so I just turned myself in and bailed myself out. But I've gotten 2 charges because I won't go against him to the police because I didn't want to be beaten because of it. So there's that. And then finally, after I got out of jail, I lived at my mom's house for a couple months, and then I found a place for us to live. The beatings didn't stop. The cheating didn't stop. Like, I mean, this man would cheat on me. I can't even tell you the amount of girls. Like, I would catch him. There was one time I was pregnant, and the same girl he would go back to over and over again. He left, and I couldn't get a hold of it. He shut the cell phone off. And I kind of had a feeling where he was, so I drove over there with my sister. He had my car, and I had the extra set of keys. My sister picked me up. I knew where the girl's trailer was, a couple cities over, so she drove me over there, and sure as shit, my car's sitting there, and you can see in their big bay window on the front of the trailer that they're all sitting there getting high. So I said, fuck this. I'm pregnant, we're married, I'm about to have a baby, this is ridiculous, my car is gone, I can't even go anywhere. And he didn't have a license. He has, like, never had a valid license. He did for a little bit, but it was, like, a couple months before he got suspended. And, I was never allowed to drive my car. That was part of the controlling thing. I was never, ever allowed to drive my car. It just wasn't allowed to happen. So I got in my car. I had the keys to it, and I got in it, and they saw me from the window and came out, and I'm like, this is it. Either you stay here with this nasty bitch, or you get in the car and come home with me. I'm your wife, and I'm pregnant with your child. I said, this is bullshit. You are not going to play this game, and you are not going to keep taking my car like this. And it was absolutely atrocious. Like, I had caught him the night we moved out of that apartment and into the next one. He didn't really help my parents helped me move, and my grandma, and he didn't really do a whole lot. And then I unpacked the entire apartment by myself while I was supposed to be on bed rest. This is the one where I was on bed rest. And then that night he took off. So I was in this new apartment in a different city that I haven't lived in before, and he took off the first night of us being in our apartment while I'm supposed to be on bed rest because I have a high risk chance of losing this baby at this moment. And he did. He did with his cousin. His cousin picked him up. He did leave my car for me. I waited and I waited, and his phone, and I knew when he was cheating because his phone was shut off. So I went back to our old apartment because we hadn't turned the keys over yet. We still had a couple days before the end of the month to turn the keys in. And something in my gut just said, he's at that apartment. So I went there and I saw the lights on, but the sliding blinds were shut. So I walked in the front door, and then they heard me trying to put the key in the door, and they tried to hold the door shut, and I busted through the door. And the furniture that we had moved out and put at the dumpster, they had brought back in so that they would have a love seat and a chair to screw around on. They had pissed on the floors, and his cousin and him were in there, and they had 2 girls there that I had never seen before. And when I bust through the door, my ex-husband's in the bathroom with his pants down with this girl. And his cousin was, he called his name and said, your wife's here. And they're opening the door, and he's trying to pull his pants up, and this girl's sitting on the counter. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? We just moved tonight. I'm having your baby in the next 4 weeks, and you are at our old apartment screwing some girl. And of course, I got the excuse of I'm helping her in the bathroom or something. And I'm like, yeah, I bet you are. And he was drunk, so his cousin took the 2 girls and they left. And he was so mad at me for busting him out that he beat me in the parking lot, and he hit me so hard across my face that he broke my glasses. They flew off my face and he broke them. And it was the middle of the night, so somebody called the police, so you hear cop sirens coming. And then he's like, please take me home, don't stand out here and don't let them arrest me. And I'm like, take you home? I can't see to drive and you're drunk. So I had to drive home with no glasses. I was only like 10 minutes away, but I had to drive home in the middle of the night in the rain with no glasses. And he had just hit me so hard that he broke my glasses. So now I have no backup pair of glasses and I couldn't see. My mom had to buy me some new glasses. And I mean, it was just shit like that. I was pregnant, and because he got caught cheating, I got hit. Um, so then after I lived at my mom's after the charge, after jail, I found a place. It was a trailer, and it was the only place. There were cheaper places in a different city, but he didn't want to live in that city because I had friends in that city. So he decided that we could live in a dumping trailer that cost a little bit more than a house would have. And I lived there. We got stuck there for 3 years. And the beatings got worse. It started being like several times a week. By the time I left, it was several times a week. And I left him. We hadn't even been at that trailer for a year when I finally had enough. He didn't want me to go to college. I wanted to go for nursing. So I applied and I went. And he would do this thing where all the time when I was working for every single job, he would take my keys, so I'd be late for work. He would take them and he wouldn't give them back to me, and he would hit me and all this other stuff, and I'd end up being late for work. And he didn't want me to leave with the car, and he didn't want me to go to work, but I had the only real source of income other than his piddly Social Security disability check, which doesn't pay for jack shit. I have other bills I have to pay for. So he would do that for school, and I'd be late for classes a lot. And I actually had then got a job working midnights, remodeling Walmart. And I wasn't working for Walmart. I was working for a temp agency that was doing the remodel crew. So I would work midnights there, and I think it was like a 10-hour shift, and then I would go straight to classes in the morning from there. And he started blowing up Walmart's phone because I would shut my cell phone off. Finally, he'd blow up my phone while I'd be working, fixing shelves and repolishing floors and stuff. And he'd be blowing up my phone. And I'd shut it off. I'd call him on my break, but he'd be passed out drunk by then. But I'd shut my phone off. So he started calling Walmart and harassing those people. And finally, he would tell me almost every night, "You need to come home and get this baby because I want to leave and go party with my friends. And if you don't come home right now, I'm leaving the baby home alone." Now, my son was less than a year old at this point. And I'm like, you can't do that. And then I'm stuck with the dilemma of, do I stay and risk someone picking him up and my child being left home alone? Or do I leave work, lose my job, lose my only source of income just to make sure that my son's home so he can take, my son's home safe so that he can take off the car and go party? So I made the decision to stay at work, and I called his bluff. And he didn't actually leave Nicholas home alone, but the second I got home from school the next morning, my car would be gone until it would be time for me to leave for work. Again, the following night at like 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever it was. And it was just ridiculous. When my son was 2 weeks old, I was still on maternity leave, and I was working for a company. They had a company picnic, and because I was on maternity leave, I was still an employee. I was on FMLA. So I went to the company picnic, showed off the baby, and all my coworkers got to see him, and he was only 2 weeks old. They had alcohol there, so my ex-husband decided to drink. Got very, very drunk, and was starting to act up, so we left. I did win some pretty good prizes, and it was time for us to go, so we went to the parking lot, and he wanted to drive, but he had drank loads and loads and loads of beer. And I'm like, "You're drunk. We have a 2-week-old baby. I'm not letting you drive. You don't have a license." So I put my son in the car. I put the stroller in the trunk, diaper bag in the trunk, my cell phone, my wallet, everything was in there. I tried to get the keys from him. He hit me a couple times, and then he drove off. And the passenger door was still open while he drove off, and there were people in the parking lot who had seen him hit me and drive off drunk. So I had to call the police. And he took my 2-week-old baby drunk, and he went over to Illinois to his mom's house. I had no cell phone. I had no house keys because everything was in the diaper bag that was in the trunk. So I used the people who had witnessed him hitting me. I had used their cell phone to call the police. And then I had to call my sister and have her come pick me up. And my mom left work and came to me. They took me to my apartment. I called my mother-in-law, and my ex-husband was standing right in front of her, and she lied to me and said no, he hadn't been out there. She didn't know where he was because she didn't want him getting in trouble. She had no concern for my child's safety, no care in the world that he was beyond legal limit driving with a 2-week-old baby. So I'm a new mother, and I have no idea where my child is. I have no vehicle, no phone, no house keys. I'd have management let me into my apartment. My mom stayed with me for several hours, and then finally his cousin pulled up in front of my house with his cousin's girlfriend, who I was friends with. She was pregnant with twins at the time. They handed me my son and the diaper bag. My money was still in my wallet. I don't think he realized it was in there, and my cell phone. But my car was gone still. And his cousin was pretty pissed too. I guess they had met up in a beach in a high crime Gary, Indiana. They met up on a beach in Gary, Indiana, which is a high crime area. He passed my son off to his cousin, and he was with the girl from the trailer when I took my car with her again at the beach. And and his cousin's like, he's my cousin, but, and I know we don't get along, but I'm sorry that this happened to you. I can't even imagine someone taking my child and not knowing where they are at 2 weeks old. And he's like, he's like, I love your son. He's my family, but it's not my responsibility to take your child. And I am so sorry. And his girlfriend was like, dude, you gotta walk away. This is ridiculous. And I was so tore up. And he came home the next day and brought the car back. He wouldn't come home that night because he knew he was in deep shit. He had every officer, state and city, looking for him, but he had made it to the expressway and over to Illinois way too quickly. They couldn't catch him. So he's already kidnapped my son once. So finally, when we were living at the trailer, I've just had it. He started beating me like every 2 days, and it got to the point where he was choking me. I was losing consciousness a lot. He would break my stuff all the time. I would go through probably 6 cell phones a year because he would smash them. There was a point in time where we shared a cell phone for a long time because he smashed mine, and but then he would leave and I'd have nothing. So I was constantly buying new cell phones, and it was ridiculous. He was pawning everything we owned. If it was electronics or jewelry, it was pawned. I could never have anything. Anything my parents bought me, my grandparents, anything. I couldn't have anything. It was always being pawned off. So finally it came to a point where we were at the last week I was with him, we were at one of his friend's house. He was drunk, and I was just chilling, and at first it wasn't bad. Their dog had just had puppies, and I was holding one of the puppies, and he got in my face and started like spitting in my face and screaming, calling me a bitch, and I was just sitting there watching TV, like I wasn't even doing shit, but there was a lot of people there, and one of his friends, who I was kind of friends with at the time, was like, don't talk to her like that, and he's like, that's my fucking wife, I can talk to her however I want, don't tell me how to talk to her. And I'm just like, whatever, I blew it off. And then I was walking from the kitchen, I walked past him at one point in the night, and all I remember was my ear, right here, getting hit, and I fell to the ground. And I couldn't hear anything. He just punched me from behind. I didn't say anything to him. I knew that if I would have said anything to him, he would have started beating me. So I had kept quiet, and I hadn't said anything to him. I hadn't spoken to him. And I actually fell, and his friend, like, kind of caught me. So I was by the couch, and I kind of just fell and, like, hit his friend, like, by his feet, and his friend picked me up. And I came to with his friend picking me up, and then he's like, get your hands off my wife. Don't touch her. And he's like, dude, you just knocked her out. You just knocked her unconscious. What the hell is wrong with you? So then he started trying to fight his friend. So then the owner of the house, the other friend, all 3 boys got into a fight on the floor in the kitchen. And the guy who owned the house and his wife took me to her bedroom and said, stay back here. And all I could hear was just ringing in my ear. I couldn't hear shit. It was so bad. And then finally, the guy who owned the house got my ex-husband into the car and took him away and was going to drive him home, and she's like, get your keys and just drive home. Just go. Don't look back. Don't stay here. Just go. But try, call the police, do what you gotta do. But I don't stay here because, my husband will probably bring him back home. Well, I didn't know that. I assumed he was going to bring him home, but he didn't. Well, he did. He dropped him off in our trailer park. And apparently he got into a fight. This is the middle of the night too. He got into a fight with an old lady. He was like walking through her yard and like she had cameras up and stuff, and he like tried to beat the shit out of this like 70-year-old woman. And then her grandkid came out, and I mean his grandchild is older than we were, and he tried to fight him. So we're facing eviction because he is fighting these people. He was taking the rent money all the time, so I'd have to find a way to pay the rent. And the landlord was getting pissed, and he was ready to evict us. And actually, what I was told by the manager of the park was that you and the baby can stay. He's got to go. So then he had hidden. The cops came, and they came knocking on my door, and they're the ones who told me what was going on. And I guess he was laying underneath our trailer, under the skirting of our trailer with his friends. He had found a couple friends, I guess, to pick up. They weren't even the same people we were with that night. And they were hiding under the trailer. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So then he finally came home, and I wanted nothing to do with him. And then 2 days later, he had started beating me again. He wanted the rest of the money that was in my wallet, and it was for bills and gas, and I told him no. So he dumped my purse. He smashed all my perfume bottles on the floor, so there was broken glass on the floor. My mom had my son that night, so I didn't have him, and he was just hitting me, and he was throwing things at me. He threw his shoe at me and hit me, and I had a huge bruise on the side of my leg from it, and I couldn't take it anymore. And he was so drunk. He only beat me when he was drunk, but he was always drunk. And I couldn't take it anymore. I was just so tired of walking on eggshells and being left and never ever having my car. The car is in my name. I'm the one with the license. It has been my car. It was, a car my grandma bought for me. It was my car. And I could never ever drive my car. He would drive me to work a lot of times and take the car. So he'd go party. As soon as I come home from work, if I had the car, he would take it to go hang out with his friends. He never wanted to be a father. He told me he didn't want to babysit. And I'm like, dude, it's your kid. That's not babysitting. That's being a parent while your other parent works. You're a stay-at-home daddy. You don't work. You have to watch the kid while I go to work. Like, you can't. It's not babysitting. It's your own child. So it just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And the house was a mess. He wouldn't clean up anything. And I was doing 10 hours of work and then 5 hours of school straight. And then coming home, and he dipped. And about the time I get home would be the afternoon. My son would be just down for a nap. I'd get maybe 30 minutes to shower and unwind, and that was it. So I was trying to do homework and everything. I eventually dropped out of college. By the time I left him, I dropped out because he had already told me that if I went to college, he would leave me. And I decided to go anyways, but he wouldn't let me make it to class. There would be times he'd beat me so bad so I couldn't walk out the door, or he'd take the keys and take the car so I couldn't make it to college. So I dropped out. I didn't really have much of a choice. But this last time that he had beat me, I had tried to choke him out because he was drunk, and I thought if I I got him in an arm lock and I tried to just put him to sleep so that he could just pass out and sleep. And I'm telling you, I tried my hardest. And it was like when he was drunk, he was like the Hulk and Superman, and it was just insane. And I couldn't do anything about it. And he beat me, he took the car, he left, and I called the cops. And they came in and they took pictures of the broken stuff on the floor. My purse was completely trashed. He took my money. And then they took pictures of my legs and stuff from him beating me. They took a report. They put a warrant out for his arrest. So he came home later that night, or the next morning, whatever it was, and there was a warrant out for his arrest. So over the next week, he was trying to kiss my ass. He didn't want to go to jail. And they kept, SWAT would come and circle around the house. And there was a couple times we weren't home, and the neighbor said that, SWAT team was outside the trailer. And finally, they came while we were there. And, they heard the baby. And they're like, we're going to bust down the door. If you don't open it, we can hear the baby inside. We know you're in there. And they came in. I opened the door. I had my son in my hands, and they had rifles drawn at me and my child. And they made me sit on the couch, and they're like, we can charge you for hiding him. And I'm like, do you not understand if I open the door for you out of my own free will. Like, when he gets out, he's gonna come after me. And so they didn't file any charges against me. They took him, and he had to leave his phone on the bed. So I was pretty much done at this point. But the icing on the cake was he had said he got a letter from Social Security saying that for some reason they were going to stop his benefits. So he went into the Social Security office, and what he told me was, well, it's too close to the end of the month. I won't get my benefits for the next month on the 1st, so we won't be able to pay rent. But the month after that, they'll restart. And I'm like, okay, I didn't go to the Social Security office with them. So I'm like, okay, then I'll have to find a way to pay this rent, and it's going to be really hard. So he left his phone, and there wasn't like a password or anything on his phone. So after they took him, I was going through his phone, and like, I had this friend growing up who was like a brother to me. And, I mean, like, I have a sister, so this was the closest thing to a brother that I ever had. Like, my mom even, like, let him stay around all the time. Like, didn't stay with us, but, like, we were always hanging out, and he was, like, my best friend, and he was, like, my brother. Well, he had gotten a girl pregnant at a party, a drunken party one night, and me and this girl became friends, so that I could see my nephew. And, I found out that he had been sleeping with her and giving her food stamps to her and taking care of my nephew, and was never home to even see his baby, and he was giving away our money and our food. And I saw the text messages about, baby, come lay down with me, I want to cuddle, I want this, I want that, and all this other shit. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, are you fucking sick in your head? And like, it was just insane. And then she called my cell phone because I shut his off. I had it disconnected. There was no point in paying for 2 bills. So she called my phone because we were friends at the time. And she asked for him, and I said, he's been arrested. He's in jail. And she's like, oh, well, he was giving me some food stamps. Can you buy some juice for Mason and this and that? And I'm like, no, the hell I can't, because I have my own child to take care of. Are you kidding me? And later I found out she was telling people, like, at first she was like, well, I didn't know they were together, but we were living together. And she knew that. And then later she's like, well, she told people, I just didn't care. I wanted him, so I didn't care. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And this girl was like huge. Like, she was bigger than me, and like had this nasty, nasty troll face. Like, it was disgusting. She looked like a fat man. And it was I'm like, you're kidding me. So that kind of tipped me over the edge. So while he's in jail, I'm like at the point where, like, fuck you, stay in jail, I don't care. And then something happened, and I needed to log on to his bank account to access something, and he had changed his password for his prepaid debit card. And I'm like, what the shit? And I'm like, well, if I don't go on there and change a setting, I can't put money on your books or money on your phone. So finally he gave up and gave me the password, and then I find out that he got his check that month, and he blew it on that girl. And I was sitting there struggling, getting help from the trustee to pay my rent, and he took his $710 and blew it. And he was working under the table for cash for one of his friend's dads. And I mean, it wasn't all the time, but when they had a job, like rehabbing houses, he would go do it. And I guess on top of that money that he had gotten from his Social Security, he also got paychecks from his boss. And then he also borrowed a ton of money from his boss, like several $100s. So he had over $1,500 that he had blown, and not helped me buy diapers, not helped me buy formula, didn't help me pay rent, didn't help me pay any bills, let me struggle on my own, working and going, well, I wasn't going to school at that point anymore. I had just quit like 2 weeks before that. But this whole time he was getting money and blew it, and I don't even know what he blew it on. I'm assuming alcohol, and then gave money to this girl. I don't even know where the hell it went. And that was it. I was done. When I was on the phone with him, and I saw that, and I'm like, you got your check? And he tried to tell me no. And I'm like, it says in your bank that you got your check. It says that you pulled it out, too. And that was it. I was like, you're cheating on me with every girl you can get your hands on. I'm paying for all these bills, and then you're beating me every 2 days. Like, that's it. I'm done. And that's when I left. I stopped talking to him. I didn't go up and visit him at jail anymore. The state legally separated us. When we went to court, for his next court date, they put like a restraining order on by the state. So I stopped contacting him. He would still write me, which technically breaks the restraining order, but I would just ignore it. And at that point, that's when I left. And I ended up getting with somebody else, and I was done. And while he was in there, he was still being controlling and manipulative because he told the prosecutor that, oh, we're still together. So they were just going to let him out of jail because they thought they were listening to him, and I hadn't gone to any more court dates, and I hadn't talked to victims' assistants, and I hadn't done anything. It's something that I don't even know what it was. Just something told me you need to go in there and see about some court and when he's going to get out and this and that. So I went up to victims' assistant, and they said, oh, they're going to let him out because you guys are together. And I'm like, I haven't talked to him in months. I said, I'm not with him, I'm with somebody else. So they had me write out a statement to the prosecutor. So they wouldn't release, they were just going to release him based on what he said. Not even contacting me, nothing. So then they didn't release him. And then we were going to court, and I was like, there's nothing we can do to keep him in there longer. And they're like, no, he violated his probation. If I get a new charge, he served out that. And he's served time for his charge consecutively. So we gotta let him go. So I got a protective order. And I put my son on a protective order so he couldn't come near me or my son. And within 6 weeks of him getting out, his new girlfriend was stalking me. They were stalking my Facebook page. They were driving past he had his new girlfriend driving past my house. Now, I didn't know who she was, so I had no idea. But I had cameras set up. So within 6 weeks, he was blowing my phone up, calling me, texting me. So every time that happened, I made a police report. And I know it's hard, guys. Like, you have to be diligent about it. You have to make these police reports. You have to. Because even if it's something stupid and little, it builds up. Because people like this are going to do this over and over and over again. Okay? So even if it seems insignificant and it's just a voicemail or it's just a text message, please, if this is happening to you, make a report because it will be documented. And everything that's documented, you go back into the police department, you get a printout of that. I have a whole binder full of them. And you build your case, and they will start putting warrants. Breaking a restraining order is an automatic warrant. So just keep doing that. And by the time we were done and he got arrested, because he was on probation too. So breaking restraining orders violated probation, and it violated the restraining order. So by the time we were done, there was like 18 violations. They call them invasion of privacy for breaking the restraining order. And he pled out on a plea agreement. And originally they weren't going to give him prison time. They were just going to give him like 6 months in county jail, and that was it. And I'm like, you can't do this. He's stalking me. So the prosecutor came into victim assistance, and the state prosecutor sat down and talked to me, which you don't get to talk to those people very often. And I told her everything. Everything I'm telling you guys, I told her. And there's a lot of stuff I've left out here. There's just 6 years worth of stuff this is already an hour long. There's just 6 years worth of stuff. But here's the deal. The prosecutor did the best she could. He'd already been in jail for a couple months by the time we were going through all this court stuff. So whatever time he sat in there, maybe it was a month or two. Whatever time he was in there, they count 2 days for every 1 day. So if he's in it for a month, 4 weeks, they're going to count it that he served 8 weeks, which completely freaking blows. So by the time we were said and done and he was sentenced, he got 2 years of time. But he had already, so that's cut down to a year, and he had already served a couple months. So he was going to get like 9 months in prison. And I'm like, fuck it, he's never been to prison. Maybe this will wake him up. And, we'll be fine. Well, while he was in prison, the last court date, I had to write a statement because he was going around saying that, oh, my boyfriend is the one that made me call the police. This wasn't something I wanted to do every time he broke the restraining order. And my boyfriend wasn't even in the same state at the time. Like, I was not being forced. My hand was not being held. None of that. So I had to write a statement and say it in court that I was not forced to call the police to make these violations of the restraining order. I want to be left alone. Leave me alone. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. We're done. Leave me alone. I want to live my life without you in it. And since all these years of being beaten, I have a severe anxiety disorder, and I have PTSD, and it's severe, and I have agoraphobia, where I'm afraid to leave my house. And I have a lot of problems from being beaten for so many years. He did a little bit of brain damage from knocking me unconscious and hitting me in the head so many times. So I have a little bit of problems with that. When I get really, really stressed out, I start to stutter a little bit now, and I didn't have that before ever in my life. It's not bad. It's nowhere near bad. It's just I'll trip over my words and start stuttering. And I mean, this man has ruined my entire life. So my son doesn't know him. My son has no idea who he is because he was 2 when I left him. When I left my ex-husband, and when he was around for the 2 years, he wasn't around. When he wasn't in jail, he was leaving me with the baby by myself and cheating on me and staying gone. So, like, he wasn't a dad. He knows nothing about this child. My child has disabilities, and I mean, this man doesn't even know. And so, while he was in prison for breaking the restraining order, he got into a lot of trouble. Like, the day of sentencing, he told the judge, well, I was breaking the restraining orders because I was trying to be a good father. I wanted to see my son. And the judge was sick of his shit because it's the same judge that has dealt with him since 2007. And he said, if you want to be a good father, you're going to go do your time. You're going to leave these people alone and obey the restraining orders. And when you get out, you're going to leave them alone. You're going to be a model citizen. You're going to get a job. You're going to behave yourself. And you're going to set a good example. And setting a good example is how you're going to be a father. And then while he was in jail, he got like 9 months added to his prison sentence because he got like 5 major violations and 7 minor violations. So he was supposed to get out like a long time ago, and he just got out in November. He was supposed to be out in like March, and he got out in like November. And it's now January. He got out at the end of November. No, he got December 12th or something like that, I think, is when he got out, around there, or the 7th or something. And since then, it's only been like 4 weeks since he had been out, and he is back to stalking my YouTube channel, which I thought about shutting this down for a little while, but I have lost all of my friends, and at this point I just don't trust people because he had slept with so many of my friends, and I just don't trust girls, and I just don't want the drama, and I don't want to deal with it. And I had to earn back the trust and respect from my family members, and I had hurt them so incredibly bad. And he's done so much damage to my life. And now my divorce will be finalized at the end of this month, and I'm fighting a custody battle. And a couple nights ago, I had somebody try to add me on Facebook. I changed my name on Facebook so they couldn't find me. I changed the city that I lived in. I had a picture of me on there that it was me, but it didn't quite look like me from the angle. And I have it blocked, so nobody, unless you are my friend, can see content. I also have it set to where you can't even add me as a friend. I have to friend request you. So I have it also set for Messenger. I have to accept a notification that you are sending me a message before I can even read the message. So I had this girl message me on Facebook, and she was from the city that he's paroled in. And now, he got in so much trouble in prison that he wasn't supposed to be on parole when he got out. His sentencing was a year, which was actually ended up 9 months in prison, but he added time to himself, like 8 or 9 months extra, and no parole. And when he was done, he was done. He wouldn't be on parole. So he ended up on parole because he had gotten into so much trouble while he was in there. So I had this girl message me saying, hey, I saw your YouTube channel, your makeup YouTube channel. She spelled YouTube with a U, YouTube, instead of Y-O-U. And I'm like, all right. It said she's from Gary, Indiana. She asked me to add her as a friend on my Facebook. And I'm not adding people I don't know because then they have access to everything I post, pictures of my son, my life. If I don't know you, I'm not adding you. Even if you are on my YouTube channel and you are a subscriber, that's as much as you're going to get of me. So I let it go. And then, because when I had, a couple years back, I had blocked everybody that was on his Facebook page. I had blocked him. And then I had gone to every individual person he was friends with on their Facebook page and any names that I recognized from family and friends of his, I blocked everybody. Nobody could get a hold of me. None of his family has ever even wished my son a happy birthday, even in the first 2 years that we were together. They didn't buy him anything for Christmas. I didn't get a baby shower. Um, they don't care. They don't ask how Nicholas is. They don't even try to do anything. So everybody's been cut out of my life. Well, when my ex got out of prison, he made a new Facebook page, and it's not private or anything like that. And he's been trying to stalk mine, but he can't. So he's been stalking my YouTube channel and been watching my videos, which creeps me the hell out. And I really, really thought about getting rid of this channel, but at the same time, like I said, I've lost so much because of him. He's not getting this from me. This is relaxation. This is my channel. This is me. This is what I want to do. So there's no way in hell I'm giving him my channel too, so he can just screw himself. That he's not getting this. And I'd gone to that girl's page, and I'm like, okay, well, I've blocked everybody he knows, so chances are I'm probably not going to find anybody, even if she is friends with them. And I did. I went through her friends list, and his youngest brother, or not his youngest brother, the next brother down, there's 5 kids. It was him, and then the next brother. The next brother had been with the same girl for like 10 years. They have kids together and stuff, and I used to go to like her family's house and spend time with them and stuff. Well, I'm seeing her last name everywhere, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I found her mom's page on this girl that I'd never heard of. I don't even think it's a real name. It was like Kitty, like Kitty, and she said she worked for a cat place or something. I don't even think it was a real Facebook page. You couldn't see anything but a picture of a puppy. So I think it was just made up or some bullshit page, and I wasn't going to add them to see who they really were. So I saw all of his brother's girlfriend's family on there, and I'm like, great, so he's using them, who they live in the same city as he does now that he's paroled in, to try to access my Facebook page thinking I'm not going to realize it. So I did realize it. I went on to, I just hadn't, I don't know, something made me just search his name, because I had blocked his original Facebook page, and he made a new one. So I went on there, and he is covered from his entire neck down. All his arms are covered in gang tattoos. And he had been claiming a gang for quite a while, but you know what? I lived with him for 6 years. He wasn't a real gangbanger. It was all fake. It was all bullshit. But while he was in prison, he got his gang tattooed, and he's covered in these gang tattoos. And he's posting that I'm a deadbeat mom because I won't let him have anything to do with his son, and all this other stuff. So it's like he's got the girl that he kept cheating on me with is commenting about get a job and take her ass to court, get your kid back. And I'm like, if these people only knew how bad of a father he really, really is. Drug addict, alcoholic, an abuser, kidnapping your son drunk. And it's like, you know what, all these people are drug addicts too. They're all jail friends. So it's like, whatever. These people are so low life that fuck it. Like, I don't even care. Talk your shit. But I did take the pictures off his Facebook. I downloaded them, and I will be using them in court because I'm not going to let my child go stay in a high crime gang area with a man who's covered now in gang tattoos. And he did not have these tattoos before he went to prison. So with his judge saying, be a good father, blah, 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 don't get in trouble, you went in, you got like 11 violations or 13 violations. You got extra time added to you. You got covered in gang tattoos from head to toe, and you are now on parole because you got in so much trouble. So be smart. Like, I am fighting this custody battle, and I'm being smart about it. I'm going to use everything I can, all of my police reports, everything. And I don't think that anything is too little. I went into the police department with the information about this new girl who was adding me, and it's not a violation of the restraining order. He had wrote things on his Facebook, like directing them to my son, which I wasn't sure if that was a direct violation of the restraining order. It turns out it's not, because he didn't send them, and apparently you have the freedom to write whatever you want on Facebook, but until he sends it to my son or sends it to me in a message, it's not breaking the restraining order. But I did talk to this officer. I did show him this girl's page, and I told him, and he can't make a police report, but he can make a deposition. And I'm like, just put something in writing because this is how it always goes. He's got people stalking me, and then it'll turn up. He'll start calling me. He'll start texting me. He'll start driving past. So I'm like, at least put something down so that we have something to build on. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I've in 2 months it'll be 4 years since I left him, and everybody asked, why did you stay for 6 years? Why did you let him beat you for 6 years? And at first it was, I had been with him for so long, I didn't know how to live without him. And he had filled my head that he would tell me I'm no good, nobody wants me, I'm a fat bitch, I'm ugly, he's the only person that's gonna want me. And finally you're just like, I don't know how to live my life without him because I've been with him for so long, this is what I'm used to. And that's not true. Like, I got pissed off enough that I left. It took me 6 years. It took me a marriage that I'm trying to fight my way out of. It took me losing every family member that I have and trying to regain those relationships back, and it's not easy. You might think that, oh, it's family, it's blood. It's not easy. It's not easy to get them back. I'm telling you, yes, it is hard to walk out, but I'm so much happier now. My things are not being stolen. My family members' things are not being stolen. My stuff is not being pawned off. I don't have to worry about, I'm not allowed to drive my car. My keys are being taken from me. My money's being stolen out of my purse. I'm getting beaten left and right for everything. Dealing with a drunk idiot. I don't have to worry about any of that anymore. And I know everybody says, when you're ready, you'll leave. But if you feel like any of this is happening to you, even just a little bit, if the control is starting to happen to you, where you aren't allowed to wear makeup, you're not allowed to do your nails, you're not allowed to talk to your friends or family, get the hell out. Get out now. If you're with somebody and they're mentally abusing you, I promise you there will be physical abuse. It might not be for a couple years, but I promise it will be there. I took months of mental abuse before the physical abuse started. Get out. Don't stick around. And yeah, it's hard, but I'm going to tell you right now, 6 years of being beaten. He stole money from my banks. He actually, before we were married, I think, when we were still living in the car and we were bouncing around from hotel to hotel, he took a check from the middle of my checkbook. And I was out with his friend's girlfriend, and we were picking up something to eat and picking up some stuff. And they ordered a pizza and had it delivered, and they took a check from the middle of my checkbook. And I had no money in that bank account at that point, so I wasn't checking on it. I didn't have a mailing address, so I wasn't getting the statement sent to me. I had no money, so they overdrew a $15 pizza, overdrew my account $500 because the company kept sending it through. And they didn't check for ID, so it was a female's name on the check, but it was two guys in a hotel. And I had to pay all of those off. And it messed up my credit, it messed me up with the banks. He would buy cell phones behind my back through my T-Mobile account and messed up my credit there. My credit, I am just now bouncing back from this. Don't wait 6 years. Don't wait through all of this, because I have been gone from him for almost 4 years and I'm still paying the consequences. No, don't get me wrong, it is better to be gone and still paying the consequences than to be beaten or murdered. And there were a lot of times I thought I was going to die because I'd be knocked unconscious or I'd be hit so bad. I was scared he'd grab a knife. I was scared he would do something. So get out, but don't wait too long, because you don't want your children being hurt. I lost 3 babies because of this. I'm just as guilty because I stayed and I let him beat me. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life, that I lost 3 babies. And my son has disabilities now, and every day I sit there and think, is this because of the amount of stress while I was pregnant? Is this because of the amount of times I was beaten? Did I do this to my child? I have to live with that guilt every single day. I also have to live with the guilt of, I let him steal from I didn't let him steal, he stole from my grandma and he hurt my family and my mom, and I had to earn that trust back. And when I got out of jail for those 2 months, they were going to let me be homeless because nobody wanted me around. And my mom gave in and let me come stay with her, but they were going to let me be homeless because they just didn't want to deal with it anymore. Don't do that to your family. Don't do that to your friends. And I'll tell you right now, I regret every second of letting my good friends go, the ones the ones that he didn't like. So they turned their back on me because they didn't want to see me keep watching me get hurt. Every day I think about them and how are they doing, and I regret every minute of letting them walk out of my life because I chose him. It's not worth it. And they're right now, I know that at least in Indiana, the laws really, really suck. I had to fight to get this new restraining order before he got out of jail. I didn't know that he was going to be on parole. He wasn't supposed to be, which means the several restraining, there's like 8 restraining orders that the state put on. So if he violates them, he'll get like 8 new charges automatically and go back to prison, and then violates parole on top of that. But I didn't know those would still be good because of the parole. If you're on parole, if he's on parole, the restraining orders are good until he's done with parole. I didn't know that, so when he got out, I was trying to get a new restraining order. Now, the judge that I went through wasn't going to give me a new restraining order because they've changed the laws. If he has not contacted me during the last restraining order period, which was while he was in prison, they won't give me a new restraining order unless he's done something wrong. They won't renew it. And I'm like, how? He can't come visit me. He was in prison. He can't write me because I don't live at that same address. So if he was writing me, I wouldn't know. And he can't call me because I don't have money on the account for that specific phone system for him to even call me. How would he contact me? And so finally I went over her head, which I know it probably pissed her off. I went to the judge. He had tried to get out of jail early, and he had gone back to this judge, and the judge had seen that there was 5 major and 7 minor violations and denied his request for early leave. And that judge did grant me a restraining order. I had to sit in front of him and explain, this he didn't want to deny it. He told me the same thing the other judge did, that the laws have changed. And she's like, he's like, how do you know he's not a changed man? And when he gets out, he'll be a model citizen. And I said, Your Honor, you denied him early relief because he's a danger to the society, and he's had 7 minor and 5 major violations. So clearly he's not a changed man. That is the only reason I was able to get my restraining order, which now doesn't matter. Now it doesn't matter because I would still have the other restraining order because of parole, but we didn't know about parole. So I was fighting so hard because technically we were legally still married. If there's no restraining order covering my son, he could just take him. And my son doesn't know who he is. That's a complete stranger. And with his disabilities, his mental disabilities, it would ruin this little boy's life. He wouldn't know, bringing a stranger into his life like this, and an abusive one at that. So yes, I'm still struggling 4 years later. I'm just now getting my credit back on track, and I'm doing good. But I'm gonna have problems for the rest of my life. I'm always gonna have that brain damage. You can't fix that. That doesn't go away. I have PTSD. You can't fix that. I've read on it that sometimes it clears up by itself and goes away, and other times you're left with it forever. And they can give you medicine to help, but nothing fixes it, nothing makes it go away, and even the medicines don't fully help. I have panic attacks left and right, and it sucks. And that's something I have to deal with for the rest of my life. I had a child with this man, and I love my son. I wouldn't trade him for the world, but do I wish he had a different dad? Oh God, every day. But I can't change that, and I'm scared that when we go to court, he's going to get visitation of some sort. And I know these judges can't be crazy out of their mind. I know it would be like supervised, but I have to bring this awful man into my son's life. I am praying for the best, that his rights will be terminated and I'll have full custody. I'm praying for the best, but Indiana is a father's rights state. They believe in father's rights, and I am all for father's rights. If you're really trying to be a good dad, do it. Get your kid. But he's not. He's only trying to be a good dad when he's locked away and he can't have his child. When he's at home babysitting his son, he doesn't want anything to do with him. He's not a good dad. I mean, hell, he beat me and almost killed his baby. He killed 3 of his babies and almost killed this one while I was pregnant. That is not a good dad. So, yeah, I want to keep my son safe, and this is something I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. I made these decisions to stay, and I stayed as long as I did. And it is something I have to deal with. And I've had a lot of things stolen from me. I've had a lot of things pawned. My grandma stopped buying anything nice for me because she was tired of spending the money, and then it was disappearing. I've hurt a lot of people just by being with him and letting him hurt them. And you can't always fix that. You can try, but not 100%. Your credit, it's taken 4 years just to start fixing my credit. I'm just starting to get on the right track. Okay, he would call my jobs and threaten to blow up the place and kill my managers. I have police reports on that. I'd lose my jobs. I'd lose my housing. I'm lucky that 3 places I rented from didn't evict us. Well, the first one where he put the holes in the counter and the walls, we fixed up the walls, but we couldn't replace the counter. I'm lucky I didn't get sued for that, and that goes on my credit, and that goes on my rent history. I got really lucky. The other one that we were living at with a slumlord that lost ownership of the apartments. I went to jail at the time, so we gave up the apartment, but at that point I hadn't even paid for rent and they were going to evict us. And I'm lucky that that didn't go on my record as an eviction because you can't rent from people. They run that and it goes on your credit history and you get sued. And I'm lucky I didn't get evicted from the trailer because of him causing fights and problems. He went to jail when he did, and I was able to have a place to live for a couple more years. But that could have gone on my credit, and I could have been sued for those and paying those off too. And this stuff follows you for years. When you get out, it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to lie to you. Your life isn't going to be rainbows and butterflies. You have to fight court dates. You have to fix your credit. You have to fix your life. You have to fix your relationships. It's not easy, but it's so much better. It is so much better. I don't sit at home at night worrying about where's my car, where's my kid, where's this, am I going to get beaten, is the money stolen out of my wallet, is all my jewelry missing, is this going to happen, is someone going to come into my house. Like a lot of his friends would come in and when they'd stay over, and then when they'd leave, a bunch of my stuff would leave with them. Stuff was stolen from me all the time. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And the beating, I'm not being beaten anymore. You know, I'll take the PTSD any day over being choked and knocked unconscious. Get out. You have to. And you know what? If you need help getting out, message me down below and I will talk and we'll figure a way to help you. There are ways out, and I found mine. I put him in jail and I never looked back, and I don't regret it for a second. And I stopped being afraid. It used to be I was afraid he would come kill me if I put him in jail or he'd beat me. No, he has such a thick record behind him. I've got the police helping me. I've got victim assistants still helping me. I've got the judges on my side, and it sucks and it's hard, but get out. Get out while you can. And if you think that you're in an abusive relationship and you're not sure, just step back and look. Are they controlling any type of aspect, whether it's your job or your car or your beauty supplies or who you talk to, your friends list? Are they on your Facebook, trolling your Facebook? Are you constantly being accused of cheating when you're not and they are? Are they cheating on you? Do they smack you and pinch you just goofing around and playing around? Because that leads to something. If you love somebody, you don't want to hurt them for any reason, even if you're joking around. He used to smack my ass so hard and then pull my pants down to see how much of a mark he left. That should have been a sign that I was going to get beaten. That type of thing got him off. I was raped a few times by him. I wouldn't want to have sex with him, and he would rape me. If that's happening, get out before it gets any worse. Before you lose your life, before you lose your kids, before they hurt your kids. Get out. If their family controls parts of your life, there was a long time where his family said that my son was not his kid, and he would stick up for me while we were at his mom's house, and then as soon as we come home, that's not my baby, that's not my kid, you cheated on me, this and that. And I didn't cheat on him. I was on lockdown, and it is his son by blood. And I mean, even if it wasn't his son, legally it is because we were married and he signed the birth certificate. Obviously, he thought it was his son enough to sign the birth certificate, but it is his blood. When he went to jail, he filed for a paternity test. When we went to child support court, he said, "Why should I pay that bitch any money?" And that's it. If you want to be a good father, then pay for his daycare. pay for his diapers, pay for something. I'm not going to blow the money on stupid shit. I have to pay out of pocket for my son. And at this point, I filed for divorce. I don't want money. I don't want him to have visitations. I filed for full custody with no visitations. And I don't want a penny from him. I've taken care of this little boy for 5.5 years by myself, and I'll keep doing it. But I know it's hard to be strong sometimes, and I know sometimes you get stuck because you're scared to leave, you're scared they'll hurt your family, you're scared. But you gotta take that risk because they're gonna hurt you, and they're gonna hurt you real bad, and you don't want it to get as bad as mine got. And I know that there are women out there who have worse stories than me, where they've lost their life, or they're paralyzed, or whatever. I know that other people have it worse than me, but I still have a pretty bad story, and I'm still fighting it every single day. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. Honestly, even though it's such a struggle for me every day, I wouldn't go back ever. And I wouldn't trade that day where I turned my back and walked away. I wouldn't give it up. And every day I wish that I would have done it sooner. And I wish that I wouldn't have gotten married, and I wish I wouldn't have had a baby with him. Even if I wouldn't have had a baby with him, I would have ended up having a baby with somebody else, and I'd still have a child that I love. And I won't trade my son for the world. I don't regret him at all. I regret who his father is. I regret that choice in my life, and that's something I have to live with for the rest of my life. Something I'm gonna have to deal with. And it does get easier over time. It really does. You'll find yourself smiling. You'll find yourself happy again. And even if you have the PTSD and the anxiety, you will find that you are happy a lot more than you ever were in that abusive relationship. Stop letting them hold you down. Stop letting them control you. If you are seeing any of the signs, anything that I told you, any of these stories, if any little bit of if you thought for a second in this video, hey, that happens to me, get out now. Don't just sit around and wait for things to get better, because I did that. I was offered, within the first month of my son being born, I had a family member offer to pay for a divorce lawyer and pay for the divorce and pay for everything. And I'm like, no, we just had a baby. We're married. We just had a baby. I'm going to give him time to be a father. I want him to step up, and maybe this baby will change him. And it doesn't work like that. You can't change them. I wrote letters to the courts while we were still together, defending him and how his father abused him and how this is not. I made excuses for the reasons I got beat, and there is no excuse. I don't care if his father molested him or beat him when he was a child. You are an adult and you're a human being. You choose who you want to be. You choose to beat your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or whoever. You choose the mental and physical abuse that you lay on somebody else. I don't care if somebody did it to you. You choose what you do. You're an adult. You make your decisions. So don't make excuses for them. If any little bit of this video sounds like something you're in, get out. If you need help getting out, there are hotlines. Contact me down below. I can try to look up something for you. I can try to talk you through it. I can help you as much as I can. But don't let it get as far as I did. I regret letting it get this far so bad, and I live with that for the rest of my life. And I feel guilty about that, and I got to deal with that every single day. But don't let it get this far. Don't let it get 6 years in, because the longer you wait, the harder it is to get out. The more damage is done, and you don't need that, and you're better than that. And don't let them tell you that you're worth a piece of shit, or that you're fat, or that you're ugly, or that whatever. Don't let them say that nobody loves you, because you know what? I found somebody that loves me with all of their heart. I'm loved. I'm loved by a lot of people. I'm loved by friends. I'm loved by family. I am loved. I am very loved. Don't ever let somebody tell you that. Just get out as soon as you can, and don't hesitate to talk to somebody. I didn't for a long time, and when people talked to me, I shut them out, and I didn't listen to them because I defended him for so long. Stop doing it. Because it's not going to help you, it's going to hurt you, and they'll have that much more control over you. Hell, he still has control over some of my life. I look up and down my street every time I walk out my front door. When I'm driving, I'm looking around, making sure he's not stalking me. I have set my Facebook privacy settings and changed all kinds of stuff. But I put my foot down on this YouTube channel. I will not delete my YouTube channel. I will not get rid of it, and I will not stop being who I am. I'm not going to let him have that control over me. It's not going to happen. So if you're being controlled or abused in any way, shape, or form, I beg you to please get help and get out before it gets too bad. And again, contact me down below in the comments, or talk to a friend or family member, or call the police department, call the courthouse. They have domestic violence advocates. Even if you haven't made a police report, they will talk to you. They are good at talking to people. So call them and get out before it gets worse. And I'll see you guys later.